Welcome to the Agents of Fandom podcast. I am your host, TJ Zorich. We have a very big show ahead of us today. Not only will we be reviewing Moon Knight episode 4, like we always do each and every week, we also are going to be talking about the wonderful, wonderful film, Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I just saw the other night. And Garrett, we know, has already seen, wrote a wonderful review on agentsoffandom.com. But before we get into any of that, I'm joined, of course, by my co-host, Garrett. Garrett, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. It feels like it's been a long day, but I know you feel the same, but I think we're ready to jump into some exciting things. One, a movie that I think everyone who we're going to be talking about it with tonight is very passionate about. And then two, a great episode of a series that, I mean, let's be honest, it's a banger. So I'm ready to talk about it all.
Me as well. And so joining us later to talk some Moon Knight is our friend Ron from POC Culture, and he's going to be joining us to talk Everything Everywhere All at Once as well. But before that, we have another friend here from the Agents of Fandom, another one of the agents who is very passionate about this movie. He loves it so much. He has another podcast called 24 of A24. Did I get that
24
right?
minutes. Yeah, 24 minutes of A24.
24 minutes of A24. You've heard him before. You recognize the voice. Ethan Simmie. How's it going, Ethan?
What is up, TJ and Garrett? You guys are amazing for getting me on this pod to talk about a movie that I obviously can't stop talking about. I can't stop tweeting about it. I can't stop thinking about it. So I'm just jacked as hell to be here and talk to you guys.
Me too. And geez, are these animals causing chaos in the background right now? People watching on YouTube can see Shadow knocking over Spider-Man and Black Panther as we speak. But we're not ready to talk about Marvel yet. We're going to get into that stuff later. Spider-Man already got knocked down in the movie standpoint, so that's something we're going to get into later. But we're here to talk about good things, everything, everywhere, all at once. And now, before we get into this, we are not going to talk super in-depth spoilers because our producer Ruben hasn't seen it yet. He's still excited. A lot of our viewers haven't seen it. So I kind of want to almost pitch this as like we're convincing our friends why they need to go see this movie because it's so great. And so, Garrett, I'm going to start with you because you wrote a review on agentsoffandom.com, and not to bury the lead a little bit, but you have high praise, top 10 praise.
Yeah, so I think that this is a top 10 all-time movie for me. And pitching it from the angle that like this was something that was really hard for me when I was writing my review, right? Because I was like, not a lot of people have had the chance to see this movie yet, so I don't want to spoil things. But it's really hard to talk about like without spoiling some things. Like there's just so much that happens in this movie. And there's just a lot to say. And it's, like I said, it's really hard to say without revealing like some plot points. But yeah, I think that this is one of my favorite films I've ever seen. It makes you feel like legitimately every emotion that you could possibly feel. You laugh, you cry. I spent the entire last 20 minutes like trying to fight back tears. And I think what's really important about it is that it can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And I'm not going to get into that much right now. We can do that going forward. But those are just my general thoughts. So, Ethan, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It is a little tough to talk about without spoiling too much. But I do think, the log line for this is essentially that someone finds out that they have multiversal versions of themselves and try to figure out what that means and how to save the universe, essentially, right? So I think it's a fascinating movie in the fact that, and you mentioned not everybody's seen it, and I wanted to bring that up real quick, is that it has had such an interesting theater rollout. It started in major cities, New York, LA, and like 9 or 10 theaters, rolled out to 36 across the nation. I was lucky enough that Portland was one of those 36. So I saw it about 3 weeks before it came out to the public. And then it rolled out to 1,200. And now it's sitting at like 2,200 theaters, which is still substantially less than a Morbius or Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent that is coming out on April 22nd. Movies like this that are in way more theaters So it's had a very interesting rollout. I mean, you say it means a lot to a lot of different people. You're talking about themes and storylines of generational expectations and breaking those and figuring those out. We have the multiverse, which is intriguing. We have Multiverse of Madness coming up, but this is an original take on the multiverse. We have a mother-daughter relationship. Learning how to say I love you, learning how to be present, and learning how to accept who you are in certain moments. All these massive, weighty, huge topics that this movie carries. And I think it's safe to say it's not really a spoiler. It does so with fighting and butt plugs and dildos and
hot dog fingers.
Hot dog fingers and eating chapstick. It does it with so many unique, original, awkward, weird things. And it's just, it's an amalgamation of, 2 hours and 20 minutes of sensory overload that never feels like sensory overload. It's an incredible movie. I've never seen anything like it in my life.
You said that a lot better than I could have.
And you both brought up such a great point with it means such different things to different people. And one of the things is the almost completely Asian cast, which is such an important aspect of representation. And that's something we're going to touch on a lot later when we have Ron from POC Culture in, because he can give a much better and more educated perspective on that than we can. But another aspect of that I thought was so cool is I went and watched this with my fiance, Ava, and you brought up how the expectations and the generational aspect of it, those were the parts that connected with her a lot. And those were the parts that she really noticed in the themes. And one part with that both of us really enjoyed is a movie that most people absolutely love, that neither of us were very fond of, is Mitchell versus the Machines. Whoa,
hold on, TJ. You guys were not fond of Mitchell versus the Machines?
I thought it was okay. I thought it was okay.
Oscar snub of like the century. Oh, incredible. Another podcast, another time. This is great stuff.
We can dive into it now. We can dive into it now.
I didn't even see it.
Oh,
yeah, so
I'll just double down on TJ's hot take.
I don't want to derail the podcast, but I had to get it out of my system. That's wild stuff.
Garrett, you should see it. You should see it because Ava and I are in the heavy minority of not really feeling it. And the reason why we didn't really feel it was because a bit of personal trauma for both of us, and certain parts hit a little too close to home. And so objectively, not saying there's anything wrong with the movie, it's obviously objectively a great film. It did a lot of things really well. The animation was super cool. The part we didn't really like is throughout the film, it always was putting onus on the child to make up for the parents' mistakes. And even at the end, in the resolution, it wasn't really the dad figuring out, hey, I gotta do things differently. It was the child. Yeah. Earmuffs for Garrett. It's the child basically still having to do all the work, and the dad saying a bit of I'm sorry at the end. And so what I loved about Everything Everywhere All at Once is it was the opposite. We did really get to see that growth from one of my top 3 favorite actors ever, Michelle Yeoh. She's the lead in the movie. She's the mom. And we get to see that growth from her. She starts out, and it's not complete growth because obviously she's got her flaws in the end with the dialogue that's had. But it's a core aspect of this movie is generational trauma and family trauma. It's similar in a lot of ways, in a lot of themes, to Crazy Rich Asians. And Michelle Yeoh plays a mom in that. She plays a mom in this. And it's so similar how her art goes, but it's in a different way. And I just love it. Michelle Yeoh, Andrew Garfield, top 3. And I don't know who my third is yet, but I've decided that those 2 are solidified in my top 3 favorite actors of all time. She was fantastic. One of the things, so that was something that Ava and I both noticed, but that was something that she really resonated with for me. And this was something I wrote in my tweet about how the multiversal aspect connected with my mental health. And the reason I say that is, Ethan, you brought up being present. And to me, that's really how it connected with, especially how I'm just coming off of I tried to go on a trip Eastern Canada, Quebec City, Montreal, Ottawa. I was gone for 24 hours. And after multiple panic attacks throughout the day, I booked a flight home. I was like, I can't do it. And when I'm anxious, I have ADHD, I have anxiety, depression. And when I'm anxious, I can't be present. I struggle with it so much to just be like, I can't think of anything other than the few things that are plaguing my anxious mind. And even just in general, from my ADHD aspect, it just felt like so many of the themes, the multiversal themes, were almost just like reminding me of social media and globalization and like trying to be trying to do everything, trying to be everywhere. Oh, I was gonna almost knock over all the Funkos. Let's see if I can get them first. We got them. Trying to do everything, trying to be everywhere all at once. And I think it really is a metaphor to life with that multiverse aspect of with how human beings are with social media now. Shout out Yuan's on his feet. With how human beings are with social media now and comparing their lives to others and comparing their choices and getting frozen with choices. That's something that I personally always struggle with, is trying to figure out, what do I want to do? Because I don't know if I'm doing this because I want to do it, or because I think people think I should do it, or because I think society thinks I should do it. And I just get frozen, not being able to make a choice because I can't figure out what is the one for me. And I felt like so many of the aspects they touch on in the multiverse connected to me so much for that.
And that's true for like us and even you, Ethan, in our own podcasts and our own endeavors, and trying to build our own platforms and our own brands, if you will, on social media, and trying to get followers and names for ourselves so that people will see our articles and listen to what we have to say. And there's so much, was this post good? Could we have used better language? Like, how will this come across? Even, we put out a really, in my mind, meaningful graphic yesterday on our Agents of Fandom Twitter account, talking about all the representation that we've seen in Phase 4 of the MCU so far. And people were commenting about how we didn't include this person or we didn't include this person. There wasn't enough room on the graphic for everybody, but in the description, we included all categories, and it was obviously meant to be an inclusive post. And there's just so much worrying about, did I say the right thing? Did I look right?
There's a lot of Eternals, people. We picked one. We get one Eternal.
The LGBTQ community was represented on the poster in a big way also. So it wasn't like we missed that. Yeah. But the point goes to say that, we social media and everything is so public, and there is this aspect of perception. How do people view you? And I think that's a great point to make, TJ.
Well, thank you. And I really can't wait to dive into that representation aspect later with Ron when he comes on. And Garrett, that was something you touched on, and maybe you can go into it in a bit more detail in your article, because you went there with your partner, Nina, and that was something that really connected with her as well.
Yeah, I'm going to let Ethan finish his thought that was connecting to our last conversation, and then I'll touch on it a bit before we go into it with Ron.
Yeah, you're good. I was just going to say, you mentioned LGBTQ. That's represented in this film, right? How is that tackled through generational norms of people not accepting it, and our generation who is exceptionally comfortable with that, and how do you bridge that gap? You guys saw it with your partners. I also saw it with my wife. So this is kind of my anecdotal pitch of the movie. Here, you should go see this film. My wife doesn't like movies. She does not like movies. She has had the same top 5 movies for literally ever. I've been dating her for 10 years. We've been married for 7. Her top 5 movies have never changed. All of them are before 2002. She just doesn't change her movies.
What are they?
She's there, dude, you're putting me on the spot. You got Edward Scissorhands, Patch Adams, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, Big Fish, and then the 5 spot is a couple things. But the point being, I went to this movie with her. She does not go out to the theater. She thinks it's absurd to go sit in front of a screen for 2 hours and 20 minutes. We went to our local theater on a Monday night at 8 p.m. Well over 30 people in our little theater. It was full. You know, we had a good time, and she loved this movie. And we had a meaningful conversation afterwards of what it means. What is it to be present and be here for the life that you have, instead of worrying about the life that you could have had or might have had, or things like that. How do you communicate better to the people that you love? Talking about hot dog fingers. You mentioned the hot dog fingers. Exceptionally hilarious, importantly meaningful, importantly heavy in that movie. It says so much about the film. And my last pitch really quickly. This movie, Daniels directed it. Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert, two guys who are best friends. They have directed Swiss Army Man as well. Go check that out if you haven't. But they use movies to tell their story. So there are homages in this film to huge movies. You're talking about In the Mood for Love. We get an entire universe essentially based on In the Mood for Love, the Wong Kar-wai film. And you've got 2001, A Space Odyssey, and you've got all kinds of things that tie back to like cinema and representing movies and things like that. So there's something for everybody. I think that's the point I'm getting at here, is that there's something for everybody in this movie, no matter what you like or think you like or don't like or anything. It's go see this movie. Go support independent stories and small budget films and actors that deserve more praise and attention.
I think it's pretty bold of you to mention cinema and then not mention Ratatouille.
Cinema. Ratatouille is cinema. I will accept no slander. You are correct. It's 100% right. I'm never going to see a raccoon the same way ever again in my whole freaking life.
Ratatouille or Mitchell's vs. the Machines?
Ratatouille. But
Ratatouille,
that's a very biased answer from me.
You're just making sure. You're making sure. Is Ratatouille in your top 3 Disney films?
No. A hard no.
Me?
Yeah.
It might be top 5.
Interesting.
Wow.
Interesting.
Dude, just because it's got such a banger soundtrack.
It makes me feel a lot of things. I resonated a lot with that movie. I've always wanted to be a chef in France, and my favorite. And I'm just kidding. I do love that movie, though. I do love that movie. Ethan, I'm not sure what's your time constraint here.
I'm good, man. I've probably 10 or 15 minutes if you want it.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're good with that, you can just keep rolling.
I am good with that.
Okay.
So another big thing to harken back on what we were talking about earlier, and TJ, you brought it up. I watched the movie with my partner Nina, and she is Vietnamese. She comes from a Vietnamese family. Her mother immigrated here, and this was a really important film for her. I wish like I could have her on here to speak her own thoughts, because I don't want to, they were really profound and I don't want to like jumble them. But essentially what stuck out to me is there's a scene, when Michelle Yeoh their family's getting audited by the IRS, and they're sitting there across from Jamie Lee Curtis, and she's like saying a bunch of kind of high level words, talking about taxes to her, and she's getting very overwhelmed, and she's saying like, you're trying to trick me. And Nina, my partner, was like, I've like seen that happen to my mom like many times. And I was really young at the time, so like I never like could really explain it, but being able to see it like as an adult on film, it was like very touching for her to see. And it brought a lot of like a movie like this, like Crazy Rich Asians, and like this movie with an all Asian, mostly Asian cast, that is pushed out into the forefront, into the mainstream. Like it's not the norm. And so that in the first place was obviously big for her and drew her to the movie theater. But then to see that theme in and of itself in the movie was like, it was very touching to her. And so I love, not to just stay on this topic forever, but I love a lot of the things that this movie did. It shows, you know, some true stereotypes, some true perspectives, some not true things. And it's just such an incredible movie. And yeah,
no notes.
Yeah. I think it's such a testament to this film that, one, you can resonate, you and your partner can resonate with a scene like that. That didn't mean anything to me. It didn't, because I don't resonate with that. That's not part of my life, and it didn't stick with me, but it stuck with you. And that goes to prove how dense and rich the screenplay is, and the important topics that are tackled in this movie. And the fact that an original concept like this from a studio like A24, who doesn't necessarily go for the box office. They're not really concerned with the box office dollars. They found a way to rise above all the noise. They figured out how to do it with this movie. It is the highest rated movie of all time on Letterboxd. I that's a conversation in and of itself, but it does prove how powerful this movie is to so many people. It is an incredible 97% certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, which, yeah, Rotten Tomatoes doesn't mean anything, sure, but it does mean something. Like, it means a lot of people liked this film. And you get Ke-Huy Quan, who plays Waymond. He played Data in Indiana Jones. He played Short Round in Indiana Jones. He played Data in The Goonies, and then he stopped acting for like 20 or 30 years because there were no roles that he saw for him. He goes and watches Crazy Rich Asians, and he says, I want to be a part of this. I need to be a part of this Asian American storytelling that's on the big screen. And then he absolutely crushes it in this film and slays in this movie, essentially telling people just be kind. Like that.
He was my favorite part of the movie.
Of the story, right? And it's really, really incredible. Fascinating stuff. He was fantastic. Yeah. I loved it.
Yeah, he was my favorite. I could not get enough of his scenes. And I feel like, this story doesn't need this, but this world that they've built, they did a really good job of like distinguishing, because obviously this is the year of the multiverse, right? Or these are the two years of the multiverse, kind of, where there's been a lot of projects dealing with this from different studios and whatnot. And I think the way that Daniels did this was very, like, I wasn't confused by the multiversal aspect, the rules of the multiverse at all. Like, it was pretty clear to me, and it's a brilliant original idea. And something I also think is great that I heard is that they were approached to handle the Loki series and turn that down because they were already working on this, and we're like, we already have this really strong idea and we're going to roll with it. And I'm so glad that they did, because this is incredible.
I'm so glad that they did. And I can't wait to see, and hopefully see, them tackle some type of Marvel project in the future as well. But I agree with you. Like, something like this it's a lot of movie. It pushes 2.5 hours of runtime, but you don't really feel it because of the pacing. Like, it slows down and gets emotional when it's supposed to slow down and get emotional. It's fast paced when it needs to be fast paced, and like, it carries you through. And then when it ends, it's like, yeah, that's supposed to end. The way it divides into 3 different parts is something I thought that was pretty cool as well. I think for me, this might be in my like top 5 non-comic book movies. Like, I'm trying to think of what else might be in there. And I got stuff that comes to mind is like A Knight's Tale. I love that movie. Tick, Tick, Boom.
No.
Oh yeah, man. It's amazing. It is truly amazing.
You like that movie, dude? I'm so surprised.
Gary, you don't like that movie? Dude, TJ, what is Garrett doing on this pod, man?
No.
This one's sarcasm because I talk about it all the time, but give him a hard time because he's still never seen it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it because
dude, watch it tonight.
Because Nina doesn't like musicals really. It kind of pulls her out of movies, so I don't really have the time to just watch a movie on my own.
I think can I say one more pro to this movie is that even though it is a multiversal concept, it's a one and done, right? You don't have to care about this world after you've seen it. You don't have to worry about when's the next Everything Everywhere All at Once and what did this mean for her world or her universe or the multiverse of whatever. You can go and you can be present and then you can forget about it if you want. And you can resonate with what resonates with you, but you don't have to carry this okay, I need to remember this storyline because in 9 months, I'm going to have a connecting piece of project that goes along with it, which I think is a very important notion here. And I think that's a big reason a lot of people are interested in it, is that it is something original and it's something that they don't need to stay attached to necessarily. They can go see it. And both of the times that I saw it, my theaters were absolutely packed. It is a crowd movie. It is a crowd pleaser movie. I'm talking belly laughs and cries. And I'm sure you guys experienced the same things that I did. It's so unique. And like I said, I've never seen anything done quite like this. I'd be very curious come Oscar season. I know we've got about 10 months to go, and an April release date is not super efficient for an Oscars run. But hey, if you have a small cast like this who cares deeply about this film, as do Daniels, as does A24, their production company, who can see a lot of value in this. If you get people that want to campaign in December and in January, I mean, best original screenplay, maybe. Who knows? I think anything's possible
best
for this
picture.
film. I'm not going to go that far, but yeah, I get your vibe. I get your vibe.
Something to conclude, in terms of reviewing these movies, an argument I get with somebody in a group chat on Twitter that I'm in all the time, because we are, although our opinions are sometimes the same, we're rarely ever on the same page in arguments, because he had a statement that I deem just ludicrous, and it's that there is no aspect of movies that are objective. Movies are 100% subjective in every way. And I think that's ridiculous.
Only Siths deal in absolutes.
Only Siths deal in absolutes. Exactly.
Yeah, I'd be cautious of that friendship.
I'm going to say that next time. Dropping that into the argument next time. And I actually can't wait for people from the group chat who listen to this podcast to hear this and hear about this discussion. But I tried to give examples of just subjectively, I really enjoy the OG Fantastic Four movies. I think they're great. I love them. Objectively, Susan Storm is written horrifically in that movie. It is very, very clearly written from a man's perspective, and she's nerfed. Her powers are nerfed. She's just basically just viewed as the eye candy of the movie. That's objective. That's factual. And there are many things about a movie that can be factual. Animation can be good or bad. You can enjoy it or not enjoy it, but it can be good or bad. And so when I like to review movies, this is something that a habit I used to fall into, reviewing movies, reviewing shows, is basically that if it didn't do what I wanted, I would view it as bad. If it didn't meet my expectations, I would view it as bad. But it's something we've talked about a lot recently, Garrett, about not all movies are made for me. That's not how it works. They're not all made for TJ, white man, straight man in Canada. That's not how it works. And so kind of how I like to view things now is,
they're not all made for white men. That's it. I'm out of here. I don't want to do the pod anymore.
What is with this woke agenda? Sorry. How I like to review movies and shows now is, did they set out to do what they attempted to do? And did they succeed with that? And I feel like they checked every single box with that. There were so many moments in this movie where it got silly, and not all the jokes landed for me, but there was a lot of aspects with it being a multiversal film where they basically had to show us, hey, we're not taking ourselves too seriously here. And the important part is the themes and the messages and the way they connected those two, and they balanced that. It was just absolutely perfect.
Excellent movie. Go watch it.
Yeah.
Excellent movie.
Top 10 of all time for me. Go watch it.
And so we are going to be concluding our thoughts on everything, everywhere, all at once after we get our man Ron from POC's Culture thoughts on it as well. And to be honest with you, we may have to break this up into 2 pods. Like we may have to do an Everything Everywhere All at Once pod followed by a Moon Knight pod after that. We're going to see how long this total discussion goes. But before we get out of here and have Ron join us, Ethan, thanks so much for joining us. And you have another pod where you've talked about this. Tell the people about it.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. I always love to be on the pod. You guys are amazing. 24 minutes of 824. Find us wherever you can find podcasts. We're on Twitter at 24 minutes of 824 as well. Every week, my co-host Ben and I talk about an A24 film. This week, we're talking about Swiss Army Man, also by Daniels. So we try to review A24 movies and shows in 24 minutes or less. It never happens because they're always too good, and we always end up talking about them way longer than we should. And then go check out 15 Minutes of Marvel as well, covering the latest Marvel stuff. Moon Knight reviews as well in 15-ish minutes. So if you're, tight on time, check out all my thoughts there. Same thing on Twitter at 15 Minutes of Marvel. Can I leave you guys with a Moon Knight hot take real fast?
Absolutely.
Sure. And I got a question for you after.
So spoilers for episode 4 of Moon Knight, potentially? No spoilers. Spoiler-free hot take.
Yeah, spoiler-free hot take. Episode 4, not that great.
Wow.
Not that great. Heavily relied on the third act. But anyway, that's for your other pod.
Wow.
All right. Well, you're gonna have to DM us.
What's your question?
Yeah. Hold on there, TJ.
I mean, you can't just say that when you're the only one who has a timeline here. Like we have about 20 minutes left before Ron's joining us. So
that's why I said I'm gonna leave you with a hot take because I want to get people fired up, and they got to come to my podcast to figure out why it wasn't that good. It's a perfect
shameless promotion.
Guys.
This man's a genius.
Because of that statement, you will now, yes, absolutely go check out 15 Minutes of Marvel, but you will now also be able to check out the Agents of Fandom TikTok, where Ethan is going to be dropping why he doesn't think episode 4 of Moon Knight was that great.
You're going to force me to do it, huh? Force me? I'll do it. Yeah. I'll do it.
That's fair.
Stand by your takes.
Okay. And on that note, Ethan,
do
you have any plans this weekend?
This weekend, I have absolutely 0 plans. Why do you ask?
You have 0 plans? I thought you were seeing a movie.
I'm always seeing movies, dude. I am actually seeing movies. Shit, Garrett, look at you. You know
what movie are you seeing this weekend? And are you going to be talking about it on the Agents of Fandom website? Yes or no?
Absolutely. I'm going to see The Northman this weekend, the new Robert Eggers film. He got $90 million to make a Viking flick, and I could not be more excited. Go check out my review of The Northman on agentsoffandom.com. It'll be up essentially when the movie comes out. So I'm exceptionally excited. It'll be my first piece on the website, and you guys hyping me up. Look at you. I love you.
Ethan was sitting there like, are you going to be in my city? Like, do you want to hang out?
Yeah, I was like, wait, what's going on?
What kind of plans are you? I wish it was that cool, but I just wanted to let the people know where they could find you next. Very soon in the future.
I appreciate that. It's going to be history in the making. First published article, first published review of a movie. So go check it out. Agentsoffandom.com.
And we are overjoyed to house that.
Thank you, guys. You're amazing.
There it is. Well, Ethan's off to record another podcast. We are going to take a short break here, and then we are going to be joined by our man Ron from POC Culture. Peace. All right. Welcome back to the Agents of Fandom podcast. We are now joined with a very special guest. We've been excited to have him on for a very long time. Ron from POC Culture. Ron, how's it going?
What's up, guys? Good. How y'all doing?
Doing very well. I'm so excited we finally get to link up.
Yes, likewise. I've been eager to get on this show with y'all.
Yeah, it feels like it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me.
Big time. And so we're excited to talk some Moon Knight with you, break down some MCU news. But before we do that, we've been gushing about the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once for a while. And this is a movie I know you've done a lot of coverage on already, too. So I can't wait to hear some more of your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we could do a whole pod about this movie, which I know you guys have already covered extensively. I mean, what is there to say? There's no real movie like it. I think the way I describe it is it's a movie where reviews are almost useless, because if you don't actually experience it, no one can really explain it to you. I came home I got to go to the LA premiere, which was really great experience. And then I came home and I was telling my wife, trying to explain what the movie was about. And she just turned to me and she said, "None of this makes sense." And I said, "Exactly." But
so
it's
relatable.
Yeah, exactly. It's just awesome to see this incredible indie film full of Asian American creators. Really, nothing like it. And I think you can see from the interviews that I've gotten a chance to interview a couple of the cast members. I've watched like a ton of interviews, especially with Michelle Yeoh, and when you get Michelle Yeoh emotional in tears and talking about she's been waiting her whole career for an opportunity or a role like this. I mean, I think that's all that needs to be said, frankly.
No kidding. And that's another one of the things we talked about is she was already there, but this further solidified Michelle Yeoh is just into one of my top 3 actors of all time. Like, I just love her so much.
No question. I mean, she's, I think it's one of those things too, that in the discourse for this film, people are like, see, like, this is the break that she's deserved. And I don't frame it like that, because frankly, she's already a legend, especially not just in Asia, right? I mean, she's been in the movies in Asia, but also in America. I think she's already established. So I wouldn't call this her like break by any means, but I think it's given her the real spotlight that she deserves in the US. And it's allowed her to do like some incredible things that in other films, even some of her, marquee films, that she hasn't been able to do. That you can't even describe. There's martial arts, of course, but there's butt plugs in the movie. There's sausage fingers. There's things that it just doesn't make sense independent of the film.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
That's kind of what I was saying. It's so hard to talk about, like, in order to explain this movie, like, there's so many intricate things, like, I feel like you have to bring up, but you don't want to bring up because you want the person to experience for themselves. So, like, I had such a hard time writing my review because I was like, I want them to know this, but they don't need to know this, so I shouldn't tell them this. They should find it out for themselves. So it was like, I had to like edit so much out and like fix so many things. But it's definitely a movie that you just have to see in theaters if you have a chance.
100%. And more than once. Like, I think it's so much movie that it's a lot to take in. And I think it requires at least a couple of screenings to just kind of start understanding some of the nuances, because at the end of the day, it's such a wild movie. There's a multiverse, there's all kinds of action and stuff, but it really is a poignant family film too, that I know, everyone can relate to, but certainly a lot of Asian Americans and their parents, the experiences that they've had, I think it really resonated with them, between Michelle Yeoh's character, who plays a mother, and Stephanie Hsu's character, who plays her daughter. And I think their relationship is really central to the film. And you don't get too many Asian American mother-daughter films, especially in this kind of venue. So yeah, it's really special.
Yeah, my girlfriend is Vietnamese, and she definitely had this movie means a lot to her. It was something that she's never been able to see on screen before, and I talked about it a little bit earlier, but there's a scene, when Michelle Yeoh's getting audited, and Jamie Lee Curtis's character is kind of throwing some very inflammatory language at her, and she's like, "Stop! You're trying to trick me!" And she's getting very overwhelmed. And my girlfriend Nina was like, "Yeah, I've seen my mom, like, that happened to her when I was a really young kid, but I couldn't really process it then. So it's like very like cathartic for me to be able to see that on screen in real life, and know that, like, that's not just something that happened to me and to my family." So I love that this film can mean so many things for so many different people. And for me, it was a great learning experience to be able to go with my partner, who has a very unique take on it.
That's pretty cool to hear. That's special.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the reasons it's a top 10 all-time film for me. I know I've said it a lot on this episode already, but this is a top 10 all-time film for me. So go see it, please.
All the emotions everywhere, all at once. You can find Garrett's review at agentsoffandom.com. And so before we dive into the Marvel aspect of things, Ron, why don't you give our listeners a bit of an introduction to you, your platform, what it is you do, but also what it is that what fosters your fandom? What got your love for Marvel and all the other type of geeky things going?
Oh, would love to. I appreciate that. Yeah, so I'm the founder and the editor-in-chief of POCculture.com, which really it's popculture.com. It's supposed to be a pun, but when I say it that way, everyone just thinks it's pop culture, so it gets confusing. But I founded this website to just celebrate diversity in pop culture. I have a huge passion for diversity in media, and especially representation. And we've seen a lot of that in the last several years, and it's been great. And that's a passion project for me. The site is completely independently run. It's primarily me and a handful of committed, dedicated volunteers. And I really just do it because I think it's so important for, people of color, but of all people, to see themselves, to celebrate different cultures. And when it comes to something like Marvel, the biggest brand on the planet, I think there's a special and powerful footprint that we see. And, TJ, earlier this week, I think you put out a tweet like representation in Marvel is going great. Like, look at all these great, diverse characters. And that's exactly right. Like, a lot of this started with Black Panther, of course. And Black Panther is like one of my favorite movies of all time. Definitely my favorite MCU film. And not only is it a film I just enjoyed, but it blew my mind in terms of being able to see a film like that on the biggest stage possible with a whole group of, Black heroes, not just one, to check the box, but we saw a whole world, a whole culture, and all kinds of different variations of characters. And that was celebrated and uplifted. And I think that was so special. And that same year, Crazy Rich Asians came out, which was also a very unique film. And in some ways I think like that growth has continued. It hasn't been as fast as I would have hoped. But that's what my work is focused on. And I try my best to cover those types of projects, like Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, of course, but also to highlight diverse creatives, diverse writers, directors, so on and so forth. So a lot of my interviews and coverage is focused on that. But it's not only that, right? It's my own perspective as a diverse critic and journalist, I hope adds a unique lens to the work that I do. So you can find all my work at POCculture.com. I'm POC Culture on Twitter, on Instagram, and on YouTube. So I hope you all check me out.
Definitely.
Ron does some amazing work. You can probably find a lot of his stuff shared between our profiles. We love to share his work because it's incredible. It's some top-notch stuff, and it deserves to be read by everyone. So Ron, we're so thankful that you're here to share your platform with us, and let's get into Moon Knight. Let's get your take on Moon Knight.
Yeah, I mean, are we diving in, or do we?
Let's dive. What have been your general thoughts on the first 4 episodes?
Yeah, well, it's great because for those who don't know, the Marvel did a pretty unique thing with Moon Knight, and they gave screeners for the first 4 episodes in advance, which for the other Disney Plus Marvel shows hasn't happened. We got 3 for WandaVision, and that was the most that we'd gotten. I think for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we got 1. And Loki, I think maybe we got 1 or 2. And so it was off the bat, it was kind of interesting that they made that choice because it's only 6 episodes for the season, right? I think the first episodes have been strong, a little uneven at times. I think it's really enjoyable overall. I've had a great time with the action, with Oscar Isaac just killing it and doing a lot of the heavy lifting. So now I don't know what happens after this, right? But I'm a little worried about the pacing because they've got a lot to cover in these next 2 final episodes. So I think they're at a really strong place. But if there's one criticism I have of the Disney Plus show so far is that the finales have been a little bit shaky at times. So I'm optimistic and enjoying it, but there's a little part of me that's a little worried.
Yeah, it does seem like most of these seasons really could have benefited from a couple more episodes, maybe just 8 8 instead of 6 or 10 instead of 8 type of things. I agree with you there. That's something I noted. We were lucky enough to receive the first 4 episodes, and something I noted at the beginning was that I thought each one got a little bit better. And when we had Ethan gave us a hot take right before he left us. He said he thought this episode was overrated, overhyped. He didn't think it was that great. And so we're basically going to spend the next 45-ish minutes telling you why he was wrong. But yeah, I truly thought this episode was awesome. It's I think very narrowly my favorite of the 4. 3 might be my favorite, to be honest. But if not 4, it's they're neck and neck for me. Garrett, how did you think? What were your spoiler-free thoughts of episode 4?
It's been so long. It feels like it's been so long since we've seen it, right? So I was so excited to rewatch it today.
Insert He Who Remains gift. We have crossed the threshold.
Yeah, exactly. We're finally like everyone. We're all at the same point. We've all been wondering what the hell has been going on for the past several weeks. More than several weeks. It feels like it feels like it's been like 2 months. It obviously hasn't, but I loved it. I think the horror elements of this episode really took it to a new level. Ethan said that this episode relied on its 3rd act, and that is why it was overhyped. I don't feel that way. I thought that there was a lot of good parts throughout the entire episode. And while it may, I haven't had a problem with the pacing. I can see how people have felt that way. I kind of think that the last 2 episodes are going to be like longer than we've seen. I have a feeling. I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about that?
I'm not positive. Like maybe this is me just brain fog, but I feel like I remember when they accidentally set out that 5th episode to a bunch of people. I feel like I remember somebody saying that this was the longest one, at least episode 5 was, but I could be wrong about that. What I like that you brought up the horror elements, because I think maybe this is something that's going to change in Multiverse of Madness, but I think the first 2 acts of this episode were legit like the scariest things we've seen in the MCU so far. Like big time, like it was horror meets Indiana Jones kind of vibes when they're going on their quest. There's zombies popping out all over the place. There's quite like a decent amount of gore with the zombie dissections going on there. But outside of the horror elements, I really thought Layla, MVP of this episode. Now that we're diving into it, what did you think of Layla's part in the early adventure aspects, Ron? And do you agree that this was pretty frightening?
Before I get into it, are we doing spoiler free? Because I know you said
now we're diving in. Now we're diving in.
Okay, so now we're full spoilers, right? I just want to make sure that I'm following the rules here. The last thing I want to do is ruin
There are no rules. Throw them out the window.
That's right. Awesome. Yeah,
you brought 100%. Up being fully independent. We have been so for about 2 months now, and so there have been no rules ever since.
That's the joy of independence, freedom.
Yeah.
Well, no, great. I completely agree with you. I think Layla was the MVP of the episode, and I'm glad that they gave her that spotlight, because a lot of times with these superhero action type shows, you get a separation of the characters. They come together or is in a group, and then they get separated. And it's really designed to focus on the hero and let usually him be able to do his thing and independently grow and have that development. And here they flipped that, right? And we got it with Layla. They split. She got to have her own character arc with the action, of course, and being able to show her skills, which were impressive. And then, of course, with that moment with Ethan Hawke's character being able to have that development, which I thought was great. She did a great job. The zombie element, I thought it was reminiscent of The Mummy for me. I don't know if I felt it was scary. I felt that it was like thrilling, like an action adventure type show. And I would say it leaned into that a little more. Of course, you had that moment with like where the zombie snatches her from behind. So I definitely agree with what you're saying. I think it was just more exciting than scary, though.
Fair. I mean, I jump pretty easy, and so does my partner. So that's maybe why I went there. I definitely agree. Like with the Layla parts, one thing I thought was awesome. We were talking a little bit earlier about subjective versus objective aspects of movies, and I brought up the OG Fantastic Four movies. Objectively, there's a lot of flaws. For example, how Sue Storm is written. She's basically just written as eye candy and a female love interest, as opposed to being her own character and her own hero. And so even though subjectively I love those movies, that's an obvious like flaw with it. And this is the opposite for Layla. She is being written as her own character, and she is amazing and fierce and so wonderful. And that's a pattern that I think hero movies have fallen into a lot in the past of doing poorly. And it's great to see them just knocking Layla out of the park with in terms of how she's written. And May's doing an absolute kick-ass job of acting with it as well, because it's been phenomenal. The next piece I kind of want to touch on is Layla and Steven's chemistry with each other, because Mark clearly doesn't like it. That was one of the highlights of the episode for me, when he basically punches himself in the face, throws him down that hole type thing. But before I get into anything, I want your takes on of this chemistry so far. What do you think of Layla and Steven? Are you shipping it, Ron?
It's so strange, right? Because we're supposed to ship them like as a different ship than like Mark and Layla. And of course, it's like the nuance of this like dissociative identity disorder, which it's like a mouthful for me to say. And it's like hard for us to really grasp. Like from Layla's perspective, it's virtually the same person. And so the chemistry for her is already there. And it made a lot of sense to me. But I think independent of that, like, if I were to step aside and just be like, did I like Steven and Layla? I'm still like on the fence there. I felt like it was a little forced. And I was like, what are the rules here? Like he can make himself punch himself in the face. Like, well, can he force himself to take over eventually? Like I'm really curious what the rules of his ability to, Mark and Steven's ability to take over each other's body is. Like, it was a strange thing to me. It's funny. The comic relief was worth it, but I'm kind of curious what the rules are.
I feel like that was an emotional thing. Like at some point when they're talking to each other, he says like, you have to just try. It takes like all your willpower, even to just be like a fly on the wall, I think is something similar to what he says. And so I just feel like he's like so angry, maybe betrayed in this moment, that he's like, he has enough energy to just, sock himself once. I don't know. I'm going to make excuses for it.
Kind of how I'm looking at it is it's like you said, Ron, from Layla's perspective, this is the same person. Like, yes, they're two different personalities, but that's what we know. What we've talked about lots is how we like how this dive into DID is from the patient's perspective, who doesn't know that they have DID. They're experiencing symptoms, but it's not being portrayed from a clinical perspective, because this person doesn't even know that that's what they're suffering from. And so what I do like from a kind of clinical lens of it is, yes, they are the same part. The personalities are all like aspects of one human being. And so what I like is I kind of feel like from their relationship, Layla kind of is getting a lot of things from Steven that she was maybe missing from Mark, and had maybe caught glimpses of early in their relationship and stuff like that. And so that kind of works with the chemistry for me. But then also in terms of him hitting himself, stuff like that, I think that's can all work with the subconscious as well, in terms of like, he knew he felt a little wrong about what he did there, even though if they were more in tune with each other, maybe that shouldn't have been viewed as anything wrong if they had been working more cohesively for a longer period of time. But I think maybe he would have even just let him in there a little bit to get that punch in.
When I saw it and she leans in for the kiss, I was like, oh, no. And then he stops and he tells her like, hey, he's pushing you away because he doesn't want Khonshu to like take you as an avatar. I was like, yes, he's a bro. Like, that's a homie move. That's a homie move. And then when he does end up kissing her, it's like, that's such an awkward moment because she's so like frazzled based on what she just heard and like very vulnerable. And then he's just like, you know what? Screw it. And then he goes in and I was like, that's even worse than before. But as I've said before,
based on the look on his face, on Layla's face too, I don't think Steven was as good of a kisser as Mark.
Oh, it definitely looked like an awkward kiss. Like, and I think it's supposed to. I think it's supposed to look like an awkward kiss, because she's probably used to kissing Mark in like a certain way, and then Steven has probably never kissed anyone, and unfortunately, the muscle memory that he talks about in the episode doesn't kick in with with making out.
It's a weird thing with the DID though, right? Like, because in this case, like now at least, like Mark and Steven, they do know there's another identity here, and they're like experiencing it together, like fly on the wall, like Eric just said. And so if it were to ever progress beyond a kiss, we're delving into some really awkward territory, which I don't think we're going to see on the Disney Plus show. But it's kind of a weird thing that they're taking a balance with here.
The Jerry Springer episode would be like, you're both the fathers.
I agree. That aspect isn't something we're going to see on Disney Plus, but I do think episode 5 is really going to be the deep dive into Steven's psyche. And we're going to touch on that more later. But before we do, we talked about the adventure of the first 2 acts. There's a lot of Layla. And one of the interesting parts was her interaction with Harrow, and Harrow talking to her and basically revealing all of the secrets of kind of what happened that day. And Garrett has a theory about this. I have a theory about this. So we're going to touch on that. Ron, if you got a theory about this, you better throw it in at the same time too. But before we talk about specifically that conversation, I just want to talk again about how amazing of a performance Ethan Hawke's Arthur Harrow is. And he's doing something, I think, as a villain we haven't seen since Killmonger and since
Zemo.
Zemo, exactly. Thank you. Of turning people's friends against each other, of pitting them against each other, trying to reveal secrets at the proper times, to use their emotions against one another, to split them up. And it's not just let me take over the world and I'm going to beat you. It's let me dismantle your trust with each other from the inside. And I think he is doing an absolute phenomenal job. He's one of the best villains we've seen in a while. And I'm really enjoying his performance. But specifically on that conversation and then Harrow as a whole, what have you thought of his performance? And what did you think about him revealing to Layla what happened that day?
Well, okay, well, this is good. In my opinion, this is good because differences are more interesting conversations. I actually haven't enjoyed Harrow that much. I don't think that he's been as interesting of a villain as I'd hoped, given that Ethan Hawke who is a really good actor. Like, he's definitely somebody who I was excited to see in the MCU. But, you know, at the end of the day, he's doing the exact same thing, like virtually beat for beat that Zemo did. He's like, oh, did you know that so-and-so was there? And it's not even with Civil War, right? And Zemo, it's like, did you know that this dude, this man that your best friend is defending is literally the murderer of your parents? Did you know that? Like, that's where you can see the crushing pain that makes sense. Here, to me, it fell a little flat. They couldn't go that extra step. They don't want to obviously ruin Mark Spector as a hero. So Mark didn't kill her dad. It was like he was there. His mercenary friend got greedy and he couldn't do anything to stop it. It was like, at the end of the day, to me, that felt a little flat and not as emotionally resonant. Yeah.
Did that happen, Garrett?
So, yeah, is that the true story? What? We
don't know. We don't know. But before we get there, I sense theories coming. So I definitely am eager to hear your theories. But just for that moment, if we're discussing that moment and how powerful that moment is, and how much that serves Arthur Harrow's character as a villain, to me, it wasn't that strong. I think it's a little bit cliche to be like, dun, 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 I have a secret about your boyfriend that you never knew, and that's going to turn you against it. And then she like flips out and they start having this like argument in the middle of like, come on, I know you're upset. I know you just found out something, but they're literally manipulating you and you two got to get out of there. Like, are we
little bit of Star Wars with Thanos vibes?
Yeah. I think a better scene that showcases his, because I'm in TJ's sect. I really enjoy him as a villain. I can see what you're saying. I think this was hinted to a bit more, like even in the past episode when she calls him out about it, like already. This has been brought up before. A scene that really speaks to his like, I don't even know,
lunacy.
I don't even know if that's a good word, but that speaks to his like cunning is when they have the trial with the gods and he like plays Khonshu and makes him look like a fool. Like, has he gone through one of these court experiences before? Like, how did he kind of know exactly what to say to like to piss Khonshu off? Like, it was very, that part like shook me. So that's,
for me, it was the glass and the sandals.
Oh, well, I mean, that was pretty, that reminded me of like the Da Vinci Code where the guy would like whip himself.
Yeah.
I can see that. I mean, with the trial thing, even there, Garrett, like to me, that scene with my takeaway from that is like, how easy was Khonshu, this god, able to be just like ruined? Like you,
that's where,
how did you let that happen? Like you were, you did not convince me that you were an all powerful god in that scenario. And, you know, Khonshu is supposed to be like an incredibly powerful god, but better not face Bast with that kind of lack of cunning.
I love that we can have this talk because literally all of our Moon Knight guests have like been gushing over it so far. So this is great that we're able to finally like have a discussion, like a discourse about it. I love that.
There were so many parts of that courtroom scene that I hated, just in terms of like, Khonshu, why are you yelling? All of the other avatars are speaking at a normal volume. And like, gods, why don't you just go see where his human body is? Like, just maybe check out what Harrow's doing. Maybe don't take his word for it. Like,
yeah, exactly. They acted like completely oblivious gods. Like, are they gods or are they just like alien visitors who've been off planet? Like, it's very unclear to me. Like,
I just think they don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care, and Khonshu is the only one that does care, and so he's like emotional. He's more human than them because he's been here the whole time and he actually resonates with the human. So he gets emotional and he's like, hey, like, please look at what's going on in front of you. And he falls, he trips up in that way. So I definitely see how, like what you guys are saying, but in my mind, he took on a more human persona and got like vulnerable and emotional, and which is understandable for being on this plane so long, or however you want to call it.
Further proof that being human doesn't pay off and gets you nowhere.
Fact.
Yeah.
Fact.
And so before we're too far away from the conversation that they've had, Garrett, I need you to tell us your theory of what may have really happened, because I have a bunch of other rabbit holes that I want to start going down as well.
Yeah, so we've obviously been getting this tease of probably another personality throughout the first couple of episodes, and we know that there is another personality in the comic books, Jake Lockley, and so there's a scene in, I think it's the third episode, the last episode, where like all these dudes end up killed, and then Mark and Steven both are like, "Who did it? Did you do it?" Like, "No, I didn't do it." So obviously, Jake is like the more violent one. So in my head, like Jake is the one that murders her dad.
If Jake, we're gonna before disclaimer. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're right. You're right.
We're gonna be calling the suspected third personality Jake Lockley a lot, just because that's what who it is in comics. Whether or not that is what's coming, we have no idea. But that's what we're gonna refer to, just because that's the comic persona.
Right. So I think that it's Jake Lockley who kills Layla's dad, and maybe Mark like doesn't know the full story because he wasn't he wasn't there. All he knows is he was there with his partner, and then Jake took over, went crazy, and then at the end, his partner maybe shot him and got away, and that's what he knows. So that's kind of where my theory is at with that.
I love it.
And
Ron, what do you think?
And to go along with that, just there was another sarcophagus at the end of the episode being banged on, and I assume that's where that personality is. So yes, Ron, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I like it. It 100% makes sense that they would introduce the third personality that comic fans know it's potentially coming, but that a casual audience would not really know or expect. Good luck, Oscar Isaac. Even he's already doing the heavy lifting on the show with an incredible performance. Now he has to add a third. And he talked about in the press rounds about how challenging it was for him to go in and out of these different characters already. He would have to, I think he said he brought in his brother or something where he was having to talk to himself. Right. And so good luck with that third character. Going back to in universe, again, what are the rules with the DID and his memory? If is it at one point do they meld and they can remember each other's actions? But they could at first, obviously Stephen Grant couldn't remember. Now, can he? It's a very strange. I don't know that it's clear to me what the rules are within this universe.
I'm hoping that it gets explained.
Yeah, I think episode 5 is going to give us a lot of explanation. And also, I think the third act of this episode we've been seeing kind of an unreliable narrator with Stephen Grant throughout the first 4 episodes, with him kind of being the primary focus and the primary lens perspective we've seen. I think after he's shot, and whether that is a spirit realm, whether that's afterlife, whether that's his brain before he's died, or whether that's, I personally don't subscribe to this at all, but maybe that's all been in his head the whole time. That kind of seemed to be what they were showing. I don't think that's it, but I think we're going to get a lot more details into that in episode 5, but I think it showed us Mark was the original. Mark Spector was most likely the birth name, which again kind of shows us who was the mom that Steven's later gatoring. But I think they kind of showed us that Mark was the first initial personality there, and traumas as well as potential whatever genetic things went into his disorder led into it. And so that kind of brings me to one of my next theories is, what do you got, Garrett, before I dive in?
I feel like it was always of my mind that it was Mark that was the main one because he was able to get married. That seems like you have to be the pretty frontal life to do that. But I've heard a theory.
Need legal papers.
Yeah. I've heard a theory online. I can't remember who, what, where, but it says that Jake Lockley is the personality, or the third personality is the personality that's able to take over at will. So maybe not the dominant legal personality, but the one that's able to dip in, dip out without anyone being able to notice. And I think that there are examples of that possibly in the past 4 episodes. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well before you.
Definitely interesting because so I do think it is going to be specifically Lockley, just because we got another thing of just he woke up in a cab, and Jake Lockley's a cab driver in comics. But kind of how I'm sort of viewing it now is Steven is sort of the moral compass. Mark is the aspects of both, a little bit of both, but Steven is basically the sensitive side, the kind side, the moral high ground. To me, Jake feels like the ego. This is what in my darkest corners I want to do and I think needs to be done in this moment, but I can't do it. Therefore, boop, I'm gone, and in comes Jake, and it's completely repressed and we don't remember it at all. Whether it is killing those people or whether it's returning the fish so Steven doesn't know what's going on, or maybe even asking that woman out on a date because Steven really wanted it, but he could never have done it. And so to me, this third personality that's locked away is basically the desires that they feel need to be fulfilled that they don't maybe believe is the right thing to do.
That's a cool take. I like that. And that fits like very clinically, I feel. So well done on that.
And so from a less clinical, more geeky, I'm putting on my tinfoil hat.
Give it to me.
Here's what I'm thinking.
Give it to me.
Some verbiage in this episode reminded me of something from episode 3. And it was when Harrow is talking to Layla, and he is really just almost like, not like seducing isn't the right word, but you know what I mean, of just like really reeling her in with the story, very enticing her with what he's saying. And he's talking about her dad, and he would be so proud of you because his daughter was among the first to fulfill his dream of the truth that Egyptian gods were walking among us. So in episode 3, when they're in the trial, they talk about how the reason why Khonshu is in so much trouble with the gods is because he almost exposed them in the past, and they've had enough of them. They can't have that again. Nobody can be exposing them. We don't know how long ago Khonshu dusted Harrow. We don't know how long ago Khonshu was like, nah, Harrow's not the person for me. Clearly it's been quite a while, because Harrow's had enough time to plot all of this and learn all about Amit, get his scales and all this stuff. What if there was somebody between between Harrow and Mark? And what if that person was Layla's dad? And what if Layla's dad was an avatar of Khonshu for a while between Harrow and Mark?
Ooh.
That's a banger.
And so I think that could lead into why there was a fight getting involved that led to deaths. That could be why part of the reason that caused a personality split is maybe Khonshu trying to also hide that purpose. That could explain why they have the same mission. Both of them were trying to do the same thing. And maybe after Mark's original personality ended up killing ended up killing her dad, whether or not Khonshu was still with him or not at that point anyways, Khonshu latches onto Mark. And that would also lend to the point of why Khonshu would want Layla so badly, is maybe we get to see some type of flashback of that interaction of, oh, should I select Layla or should I select Mark after my avatar just died, type of thing.
And maybe we'll see him select both, and we'll have a Thor and Mighty Thor situation. We'll get 2 Moon Knights.
I'm here for it. I'm absolutely here for it.
Hell yeah.
And so the final other just crazy theory thing I wanted to point in is it was very cool how they tied in Alexander the Great. I thought that was super interesting. Feel like there's definitely potential through lines between Alexander the Great, a conqueror from another land coming in to do a lot of colonization, and a pharaoh who was not from Egypt, who is from Macedonia, to Arthur Harrow, who is now coming into another one of Amit's avatars, or essentially disciples, coming in from another land to fix this place where he's not from, kind of thing. I thought that was interesting, but a different lens. What if that was not Alexander the Great's tomb? And what if that was Alexander the Great in the MCU is Rama-Tut, aka He Who Remains, aka Kang the Conqueror?
Wait, so are you saying that? Woo, I like it. Are you saying that that was a variant of Kang?
So that was, so to be fair, this is not my theory. This is something I've read online already, but I thought it was just kind of a fun one to bring up. Is what if the MCU's Alexander the Great, that pharaoh, what if that is Rama-Tut, and basically they're Kang in this? What if that was a reference to Kang already adapting the timeline?
That would be awesome, because I have to say, I would like that a lot, because again, a divergence here. I didn't like the Alexander the Great like moment, because I thought it wasn't proper. The foundation was not properly laid early in the series to make that moment have any kind of impact to the audience member who doesn't care about. I don't care about Alexander the Great in a vacuum, right? So when in the fourth episode, with no mention of Alexander the Great or any impact that Alexander the Great would have on this story, suddenly, Stephen is like, "Oh my goodness, this is actually the tomb of Alexander the Great." And it's like dun dun dun, and they have this like overhead shot of the tomb, like the spinning. It was like all dramatic, but it was almost like the Star Trek, J.J. Abrams' Star Trek, where he's like, I am Khan, and then in universe that wouldn't mean anything. They'd be like, okay, cool, like. But it's supposed to be a dramatic moment for those who have external knowledge that is not proper. The foundation is not laid in the show. So that moment fell flat to me. But if they redeemed that by turning it around and tying it and saying, surprise, everything you just said, that it's actually Kang, then I might look back and be like, oh, well done. Touche.
It's like a major world mystery though. Like,
But who cares? It's not. Is it an MCU?
There's a lot of people who cares. Like, I don't know.
It's not part of the show, though. Is what I'm saying, right? It's not written as any impact on the show. So it's like if you were to say to a viewer, like, these are the remains of this completely external thing that have zero impact in the whole universe we're interested in. I don't view that as any kind of revelation. Plus, what are they going to do with that? Is that going to have any kind of reverberating impact? I don't think so. So to me,
if it doesn't kind of like devil's advocating is, I think it ties a lot with the whole show being based on Egyptian mythology and Stephen being the biggest like nut for all of that type of history. That is one of the greatest mysteries kind of in that lore is, where is Alexander the Great's tomb? What happened to him, kind of thing. So they do tie it in from that lens. But what I appreciate that you brought up was just kind of like the lack of foreshadowing to it. That is what led me to kind of the foreshadowing aspect of the very, very end of this episode here. That's actually what led me to my theory of Layla's dad being an avatar, because I was trying to find more foreshadowing moments, because watching when we got these screeners, first 4 episodes, this episode ends here. And I think it's time we can talk about it with a big ol' hippo god, Taweret, being there. And so for those who don't know, Taweret is the Egyptian god of childbirth and fertility, but also something else, which is we're going to get into later when we talk a little more theories. But when I watched these screeners and I saw her there, I was like, what the heck? Where is she come from? Are we supposed to know who this is? But then when I went back and like the episodes are coming out live and we're watching them, she is brought up in the very first episode when Steven's working at the gift shop and he's talking about his boss.
There's like hippo plushes.
Yeah, they're talking about the hippo plushes, and he says that's not a hippo plush, that's Taweret, the goddess of blah, 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 blah. And so she is immediately referenced. So I thought that was very interesting how it was a soft spot. It was like it struck a nerve when Stephen felt the need to talk about her. And now that he's dead, potentially in his conscious or whatever it is, she's coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's good writing.
Yeah.
Very true. I like the Rama Kang idea. If that happens, I think a lot of fans are going to go ballistic. Because something about this show too is how there's like maybe one major reference to the larger MCU, and that being Madripoor. So something like this is also a massive call to the entire universe while not really taking away from the complexity and singularity of this story. So I like that.
And so, yeah. And another, so just while we're going into these theories, the final one I want to touch on is, where are they right now? So we talked about Stephen and like we'll give a bit of background. So be a refresher for everyone. This third act of the episode, Mark is sedated. He doesn't know what's going on. all the people throughout the story are, including Layla and the cops who brought him to Harrow at the beginning. They're all patients in this hospital. Crawley, exactly, patient in this hospital, and it's sort of meant to give off the vibe of like, did any of this happen? And especially another part I forgot. It's fresh off of the heels of the Tomb Buster VHS, where we got to see the really cool frame changes, WandaVision style, as it brought us down to the VHS style framing. And we got the Tomb Raider / Indiana Jones spoof of Stephen Grant. And it's meant to give us the vibes of, was this real? And then eventually when Stephen meets up with Mark, they're conversing, and they see the potential third personality trying to break out. And Harrow is the psychologist trying to convince them that it's all in their head and they just needs to cooperate. But it kind of, and we meet Towerettes at the end. It leads us kind of all back to, where the hell are they and why are they there? The last thing that Stephen and Mark remember, and the last thing we see prior to this, is Harrow firing 2 shots right to the chest of Moon Knight, of Oscar Isaac, of Mark and Stephen. So Ron, I want to ask you first, where do you think he is? What's your best guess of what's going on here?
Yeah, it's obviously tough to really know because they intentionally threw us, for a loop. I agree with you. You said it earlier, TJ. Like, I don't think that it's all fake. And I think fans have really been wringing their hands after this episode came out, because one thing fans hate something they've experienced and gone through being like devalued, right? They for whatever reason, that really angers fandom. And so the idea, like, what is this all fake? The last 4 episodes,
doesn't
like,
anger fandom? Let's be honest.
To be fair, we're all a little on edge due to Ralph Boner.
Oh God! I mean, I guess that's fair. I don't know.
No. I just have to. Anytime I can slip in a Ralph Boner, I'm taking my opportunity. But continue.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. It wasn't what fans had hoped for there, but so I do think all of that happened. My best guess is some kind of mental prison that Harrow has him in. I think there might be a situation where all of that has happened. He although shot him, healed him, and it has basically captured him, and is, enjoying this facade, almost like a evil Shutter Island situation. I don't know if y'all saw that movie, where it's all it is
most twisted and surprised I've ever been watching a movie.
Yeah, that movie was great, but it's kind of like that situation, right? It's like it happened, all that stuff happened. But what we're seeing now here, the treatment, I think maybe they'll flip that, where it's like that's his method of control. What I think, TJ, you're more interesting to me is the why that I don't know, and I don't have a good theory for. But it's like, didn't presumably Harrow get what he needed after, Mark or Stephen were shot, and then does he need Mark for something? Like, what now does this need to further unraveled for us to see?
And so, interestingly enough, I have a why, but I don't have a where. So before I say my piece, I want to know what you think, Garrett.
I read a really cool article today on Murphy's Multiverse. There was a promotional teaser that has a shot of like a cool like wooden ship on sailing down like a river. And if you guys notice, there's a point after he breaks out of Harrow's office and he's running away where like the lights are kind of swaying from side to side. Kind of as if they're like on some kind of water source. So that theory is he's on the boat that takes people to the afterlife. The boat where their heart is weighed and either given to Amit to eat, or they are taken, I believe, by Osiris to the afterlife. So I thought that was a really cool theory. Why is Towerette there? that's kind of where I'm at. Like, and how is she going to be there to, am I leading you? Am I softball pitching you this?
100%. And so the one part that doesn't all add up to me is Harrow. Why is he there? Why is he the psychologist? Why is he like holding Mark back here? Maybe that's just another figment of Mark's imagination because he's the one who shot him. And that is my leading candidate. So Taweret not only is the goddess of fertility and childbirth. Interestingly enough, based on that theory, she's also from an Egyptian myth of she flooded the Nile, and she is the goddess of pure water and like flowing water through the Nile. And her purpose in Egyptian mythology is not only fertility and childbirth, but the rejuvenation of the dead, bringing people back from the dead. And so if that is the case, that he is in the spirit world on the boat on the way to the afterlife, being the goddess of the Nile and the goddess of rejuvenation, bringing people back to life. That's essentially her stopping him halfway through, being like, you're not done yet. We still need you.
Let's go. We love a theory that adds on to another theory.
We do.
That's
we
beautiful.
Really do.
I like that. I like that a lot.
What would be her motivation for that? Like, why does she get it? Is she like Khonshu's ally? Like, where does that come from?
I mean, maybe Khonshu's ally, but I look at
enemy
it more
of
as
Amit.
the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And she doesn't want Amit being resurrected, which, as we know, all of the Egyptian gods don't, because they put that little statue of Khonshu up with a bunch of other statues of people who have been imprisoned. Where is Amit's little statue? It was way in Alexander the Great's gullet. So clearly they really, really needed it hidden.
And none of the gods knew where it was. And one of the gods helped Mark / Khonshu by telling them, hey, this is the one person who knew where it was. Like, go find that person. So we know at least one god is on their side. Maybe there's another one.
Maybe a little faction.
Yeah. Who enjoy humanity and think that there's cause for us to be helped and saved, like some of the Eternals who chose to stay.
And who more fitting to be part of that squad than the Fist of Justice and the goddess of music and love and the goddess of childbirth and fertility? Like, that kind of all lines up to people who would want to be on the side of humanity.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. I think it goes to like that. If they go that route, so episode 5 turns into like this like god like battle of deities and all of that. I mean, they've got a lot to cover in that whatever the finale episode is. And Garrett, to your point, like, if the episodes are longer, I would certainly welcome it. I'd be a little surprised if they were substantially longer, though. I still think that they're going to be around an hour, and so I'm a little worried about if they're going to have enough time to cover all of this in a way that's, deserving. Because if we're going to do gods and we're going to do, right, because then he's got to go free Khonshu, right? Because that was the whole point. Like, tell Mark he's got to free me, and then so he's got to go free Khonshu. We have to have a final showdown at the end of the day with Harrow. We may be seeing flashbacks too of Mark Spector's life. With maybe his family. And by the way, does Stephen Grant really have a mom? Like, is that really his mom's place? Like, I'm kind of curious about that too. He keeps calling somebody. But that flat certainly didn't seem like a mother lives there. That was a mother's touch.
There's some loose ends to tie up.
Big time. And I really think our penultimate is going to be tying up the mysterious loose ends, the mental loose ends, the answering a lot of our questions. And I think episode 6 will be our battle stuff. And the train I've been on since the very beginning is going to be that Mark's going to quickly try and free Khonshu. It's not going to work. He's going to try and save the day, him and Layla by themselves. In the final showdown with Harrow, he's got his suit back. He doesn't know how. How did this happen? And then we see in the post-credit scene that Gore the God Butcher took down all those Egyptian gods from the Ennead, and in the process, Khonshu was freed, and that's how Mark got his suit back. But like you said, it's a lot to tie up in 2 episodes, and we probably don't see them going too much longer than an hour, but you never know. On this podcast, we usually don't like going too much longer than an hour, and we're already pushing an hour 30. So Garrett's got one more point here. Then we're going to briefly talk some MCU news, and then we got to get out of here.
If, say, best case scenario, they're hour 15 each, that's more than enough time, I think, to tie up all the loose threads and give us a satisfying ending. So if they can, if they can do an hour, 7 minutes each, that's not pushing it too much. And I think that we could get some stuff done there. So
I bet the final 2 will be in the 55 to 105 range.
Okay, hater.
I stayed close. Speaking of hating things, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 1 and Part 2 both have been delayed. Part 1 to June 2023, Part 2 to March 2024. Kind of sucks. In the process, when we got a release date for Madam Web, apparently, if all things stay the same, it's going to be a month after Across the Spider-Verse Part 1. So that's kind of interesting that those 2 are going to be around each other. Ron, do you have any ideas as to why maybe they got delayed, and just what are your general thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any great theories about it, aside from I think we're still feeling the crunch of the pandemic, and a lot of these release dates nowadays, all the studios feel so pressured to schedule out so far in advance because Marvel started doing it, and I think everybody wants to jump for dates here. And then inevitably, it seems like just par for the course at this point that everybody's rescheduling and pushing. We saw Warner Brothers push some of their films as well earlier, and so unfortunately, I think we're going to still see that at least for another film year or 2 as hopefully the pandemic starts getting better. I can be patient. I mean, Madam Web, I'm on record, when we all chat of who cares? Why is this film even happening? I know some people are excited about it. I have no faith in the Sony Marvel verse, or I guess the Marvel Sony verse, or however you want to call it. Their movies have been mediocre at best, and that's being generous. And so, look, obviously the Into the Spider-Verse world is a lot better, and I think that'll take precedence. So if they have to move Madam Web, fine. If not, probably nobody will see it anyway. It'll be fine.
Yeah, and I'm they've earned our skepticism for Madam Web. Yeah, Dakota Johnson and Sydney Sweeney, reason to get us excited. But Morbius, reason to get us really, really unexcited. But at least with these delays for Across the Spider-Verse, they've earned the benefit of the doubt. And I think as much as it sucks that it's getting delayed, we are all more than fine with, we know that these creators are going to bring us something special. Let's give them the time to be able to do it. What do you think, Garrett?
I have a similar feeling to this as I do with video games. I think we see a lot of rushed, uncompleted video games that are pushed out. And
bingo card check, make fun of the Avengers game. Pew, pew, pew.
Yep, here it is. Here's another one. And I would simply rather you just wait and push those video games back and give me a full, complete game with no bugs that I can enjoy on launch than some jumbled piece of garbage that glitches everywhere that I just paid $60 for that is useless to me until you figure out what's wrong and then patch that. And I feel the same way about this movie. I feel like it's probably delayed due to the animation, which, we've heard is going a step beyond what it did last time, and it pushed the boundary of what we knew about animation last time when the first movie was released. So I would guess that it has something to do with the animation, and I would much rather watch a completed, beautifully animated movie than something that we're going to critique for them rushing and putting out before it was finished.
The other thing too is if they do need to reshoot some things with the actors and getting on the right sound stages and stuff like that, who's who's starring alongside Miles in this movie? Well, we got as Spider-Gwen, we have Haley Steinfeld. We know she is incredibly busy. We have Oscar Isaac as Spider-Man 2099. So like obviously there are people involved with very, very busy schedules. So it makes sense that that would be tough. That'd be tough as well to coordinate. Before we get out of here, Ron, I want to know your thoughts on the Thor: Love and Thunder trailer.
Yeah, I loved it. I love that the version of Thor that Taika has created is just so bright and trying to enjoy who he is, his world, and obviously we're going to see not a lot of brightness, when Gore comes in and all of that. But I love this almost like the whimsical feel of the teaser trailer. I thought that was great. And very excited for the Mighty Thor with Jane Foster. I know there's a lot of discourse about the character. A lot of the angry, sad fanboys are going to melt down when the film comes out.
The woke agenda.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, I loved it. It's crazy to think. I know this isn't exactly on topic. It's crazy to think everything Marvel is promoting at the same time with Moon Knight, Doctor Strange 2, Miss Marvel, and Thor: Love and Thunder. Just their ability to juggle all of this at once is absolutely incredible.
Speaking of Miss Marvel 2, they also released another poster for Miss Marvel the other day, and it was beautiful. And it featured some shout out to one of our friends in our global press chat who mentioned that it featured Pakistani truck art. And that is another bright example of the Phase 4 representation coming through. We love to see it. It was a beautiful poster, so aesthetically pleasing. And Marvel's doing the thing with the representation, so we love to see it. Keep that thing going. And Thor: Love and Thunder, what can we say? I can't wait for it. I'm a big Thor guy myself.
Exactly. It's going to be really exciting. And the representation front is such a big one. It's like we talk about it all the time on this podcast, but Ron, that was one of the many reasons we've been so excited to have you on, because as much as we like to bring representation to the forefront, we are still just two white dudes talking about it. And so it's so great to get your perspective on things, not just because the representation aspect, but because of how fun it is to talk to you and the great insights that you bring to the table. So thank you so much for joining us, and remind the people where they can find you.
Yeah, thank you all. I love the work that both of y'all do. I love the Agents of Fandom. And so it's a lot of fun for me to be able to connect with you guys. We chat all the time, for those that don't know, on social media and things like that. So it's fun to be able to do it this way. So I hope I can join y'all again in the future. You can find all my work again at POCculture.com and at POC Culture on Instagram and Twitter and YouTube as well. So hope y'all check me out, and thank you for, supporting and being two guys who care about diversity, about representation. We're all in it together, and we have to, uplift each other, because otherwise nothing gets done. So thank you all for the work that you do and having me on.
Absolutely. We can't wait to have you on again in the future. And it's like they say in Everything Everywhere All at Once, be kind. And it's the route to everything. And so, yes, thank you again so much for joining us. Make sure to check out Ron's stuff at POC Culture on all the socials. You can also find us, the Agents of Fandom, on all the socials, at Agents Fandom on Twitter. Everywhere else, it's Agents of Fandom. And if you're watching this on YouTube, help us combat the YouTube algorithm overlords. Like the video, comment, help us out, sub on Apple, Spotify, all of those places. This has been another episode of the Agents of Fandom podcast. Words are hard. This has been a long episode. Can't wait to get to bed.
And real quick before you sign us off, as we're talking about Apple Podcasts, we have got a really cool giveaway going on. Uber Monsters by Anthony Francisco, former visual creative artist for Marvel Studios, who is responsible for the Dora Milaje, Gladiator Hulk, Baby Groot. We got an awesome giveaway going on right now with a miniaturized, personalized drawing of Baby Groot from the man himself, signed. All you have to do is go to Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review and rating, and let the people know why you like us, why you should watch us. And this can be yours. The odds are astronomically in your favor, and it is so helpful to us because we lost all of our subs when we switched RSS feed. So please do this and you'll be entered into this awesome giveaway. And we have many giveaways coming in the future. TJ, finish us off.
As Garrett was saying, Uber Monsters, not only does it have all of Anthony's new artwork that he's putting together, it also has all of his Marvel Studios concept art that he has done in the past. So make sure you keep your eyes peeled to the socials for details on that giveaway and more. Head over to Apple Podcasts for that review. Thank you so much for joining us today. We will be back next week with another episode reviewing episode 5 of Moon Knight. That does it for us today. For myself, for Garrett, for Ron. Peace.
Peace.